Welcome to Inside the Creator Studio, an origin story podcast about the world's best video content creators. My name is Mo Akif.
And my name is Katie Kane. On today's podcast, we have Courtney Johnson, a content creator with over 170,000 followers on TikTok and 26,000 on LinkedIn. Her content is all about how to build your personal brand with social media to achieve the career of your dreams. We're going to talk to her about how she went from auditioning for the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders to becoming an influencer, why everyone should start a podcast, and how she turns cliche advice into something fresh.
This show is brought to you by StreamYard, a browser-based tool that lets you live stream to multiple platforms at the same time or record remote podcasts in studio quality. It's built for creators to make your job way easier, and we actually use it to record this show. Courtney Johnson, welcome to Inside the Creator Studio.
Well, thank you for having me, Mo.
We are going to start off with a series of rapid fire questions just to get warmed up. Keep your answers as short as you can. And the first one is, what's your setup for this call? Tell us about your computer, your camera, your mic, and your light.
I have an old ass MacBook Pro. I'm trying to upgrade. If you guys have any recommendations, give them to me. I have a Rode Go mic and I have what's called the Alex Earl clip-on light. I got it on TikTok Shop. It's like a $10 light that I have clipped onto my computer. So I've got a low budget setup right now.
Awesome. If you are looking for a recommendation, the M2 or M3 MacBook, either the Air or the Pro, they're both good, especially if you do some video editing and stuff like that. It's what our video editor, Grant, uses. He loves it.
I actually just
go ahead.
tested that out for a Apple creator event, so I think I'm gonna try to schmooze them into gifting it to me. I don't know how well it's gonna work,
Do it.
You could do it.
but I'll try.
If you had to pick between LinkedIn, TikTok, email, and podcasting for the rest of your career, which would you pick and why?
Podcasting, because that seems like the platform that is going to be the longest lasting, where other platforms might go under.
Who is your favorite entertainer? It could be an actor, comedian, content creator, anything.
That's so hard. I would probably choose Bob Dylan. I think he's a great musician and a great writer.
What's the best book you read in the last 12 months?
We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. I read it every quarter. It is a just amazing finance book for the girlies.
What did you buy during your last trip to the farmer's market?
Dog treats, little salmon, dried salmon for my dogs.
What's your favorite thing to serve at or bring to a dinner party?
Olive oil.
I feel like Katie wants to jump in
I
here.
wanna
There's like
ask
an
about
olive
that.
oil shop.
Okay, I was talking about this yesterday. In my hometown in Jersey, there's an olive oil shop, and my mom for Easter, because I'd gotten it previously, had gotten me these two samples of like a lemon olive oil and a raspberry balsamic, and I now have like two of each, and I have the big olive oil. So, do you make your own or do you curate?
No, I don't make my own. I just find cute olive oil. I think it's a good gift because you can bring wine, but everyone's going to bring wine. And then what if somebody doesn't drink? Not always the best gift. And you can bring something dumb, but people are going to throw random shit away. Everyone's going to use olive oil.
That's so true. No, that's a great idea. I have to think about that for gifting next time.
Final question. You asked me this a while back, so I'll return the favor. If you were rich and money was no object, what would you do with your time?
I would be doing exactly what I'm doing now. I would just have nicer furniture and nicer clothes and maybe a pool.
I'd be doing it in the pool, in fact.
Exactly.
I love that.
That's great. Okay, so start us off by telling the story of how you manipulated your way onto the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders reality TV show that's filmed during their audition process.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go on that show. I think it's been around since maybe early 2000s. So I was a kid, maybe 10 years old watching it, being like, I'm going to do that. Because that was the biggest goal and dream I had. Like, I've always wanted to do the biggest thing and the craziest thing I could imagine. And that was the craziest thing I could imagine as a young girl living in Texas who was a dancer. So I was always really into personal brand, but I didn't necessarily know what that meant. But I did know that I could pick out characters when watching TV, when, being in theater. And I really, really understood and can see patterns in those characters. So I started to notice patterns as I was watching the show. Like, oh, okay, so there's these archetypes. There's the bubbly one and the fierce one and the older, more mature one. And there's the, different types of dancers. And I started to notice and almost like chart in my head how they played out. So I found the areas that I fit the most and really leaned into those qualities, like I was 18 at the time. So being like young and bubbly and blonde and girl next door and fun and spunky, and really, really tried to get that across in my auditions and in the interviews. And it really worked. I mean, they do have patterns they look for. I don't know if everyone is conscious to it, but if you can identify those, it really works. This strategy also got me casted for The Bachelor, which I didn't end up going on. But every TV show, especially reality TV, but even non-reality TV, have archetypes that they play through.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm an actor, so I was just going to say, you sound like you could be an actor because you kind of have to find your type and market yourself as that. So that's super smart.
Yeah, I wanted to be an actor when I was little, but then I got to middle school and theater wasn't cool anymore, and I regret not continuing it.
Yeah, I went through that too. I get it.
What did this teach you about like personal branding? Because it feels like some of the stuff you learned about how to capture people's attention and like what is marketable is stuff that you picked up before you ever got into marketing.
Definitely. I think Katie could probably understand this too as an actress, is there is this element of performance to everything that we do. And when you understand the element of performance, whether that is for you theater or art or dance or speaking or comedy, when you understand the art, you understand better how to implement that in your day-to-day life. So whether you're giving a presentation or asking for a raise, we're all essentially just playing these parts and playing into these archetypes. And it's like not that serious. It really taught me that everything is fake. And obviously not everything is fake. But if you start thinking of everything as fake, like the reason why somebody is a CEO or somebody is, in power is because we all agree to it because their energy is reflective of that. So I really, really learned how to step into those energies of whatever I wanted to be and almost like cosplay my way into accomplishing my goals.
And what were those days like? Like, take us behind the scenes. How did those, like, how long were you there? And like, what did you do each day?
So it was, I was really in the whole program for like 2 years, but the filming was 3 months, like 10-hour days. It was super long. And basically we would get there, do interviews, then dance practice. Usually we had some sort of makeup or hair or photo shoot, back to dance practice, back to interviews, and then we would start it all over the next day. But my favorite part about it was doing the interviews, being on camera, and then seeing how everything worked, seeing how the producers worked and the lighting worked and technical worked. And all of that was really fascinating to me. So I was there as talent, but I was also just like enamored and asking so many questions about like, why is this there? Why are you doing that? And that was really, really fun and really what got me interested in marketing and media in general.
Oh, that's really cool. By the way, I don't know why my screen keeps like
The
throwing a
thumbs down.
thumbs down. It feels like I'm like passive aggressively, like subconsciously booing you throughout this whole interview. That's not what's happening. I have no idea. I have to turn this thing off.
Is this a StreamYard feature?
No,
What
It's
happened?
not.
It's the Mac
It's a
update.
Mac thing. If I do a thumbs
And
up,
I didn't do the update, so
for
mine
this.
doesn't do it. He's always in
But-
meetings like, and then the balloons come.
I don't know what on my screen is being perceived as a thumbs down. Is it my face? Oh my god. Anyway,
Yeah, I don't know.
It adds, I like it.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. As long as you're not discouraged by it and I'm not intending to do this. You've transitioned from managing social media for companies to building your own brand. Can you talk about the moment you decided to make that leap?
Yeah, so the first big leap was changing from company brands to personal brands for other people. And the reason why I changed to personal brands is because I was working with all of these tech companies, putting in 90% of the effort and budget and resources into the company brand, the company LinkedIn, the company Instagram, and maybe 10% would go to the founder or the CEO or a sales leader or the marketing team or some humans that were comfortable building their personal brand kind of off the back of the company brand. And it doesn't matter how much resources and time and money I put into the company brand, the small fraction of the personal brands always performed better. Like I could post the exact same thing on a personal brand and a company brand, and the personal brand would perform better. So I realized I can just offer more value brands have to pay less. It's a better value exchange if I just focus on a founder, a CEO, individuals, and building out their personal brands. And then I started seeing it work so well for other people. I'm like, okay, now I got to do it. It's my turn. And I've always wanted to build my own personal brand, but the blocker was just kind of a fear of putting myself out there. So once I got over that, I fully stepped into my own personal brand.
Okay, that makes sense. Katie, do you have any follow-up questions about that?
No, that I think that's really smart. And I think it's so true. Also, as a consumer, what we respond to people, we don't respond to brands. And I think we talk about it a lot at StreamYard, unless you're a brand like Scrub Daddy, who makes like really sort of out there content, most of the time you're talking about the founders. It is really people focused content that I think people latch onto. So it makes a lot of sense that you're like, oh, and I'll also save the brand's money if I focus on personal branding. And I think it makes sense in just exploring your TikTok, how that has evolved your content as well.
Yeah, people follow people, not brands. Like brands are these non-human entities that is extremely hard to make an emotional connection with. And brands with billions of dollars do it. Like we all have some sort of emotional connection with Coca-Cola, whether you think that's cool or sexy or fun or sporty or whatever. But for a brand, especially, I mean, and my background is mainly B2B SaaS startups. For a brand that is a B2B SaaS startup, that is not something that people are naturally going to have an emotional connection with. But a founder with a really awesome story that's sharing their wins and sharing their lessons they're learning in public, like that is so easy to have an emotional connection with. So it's really like the emotion behind what your consumer feels connected to.
Yeah, we're trying to get our founders to be more active on social too. Internal conversations.
Exactly. I mean, this podcast is a great example of resourcing your team to build their personal brand and the brand of the company. I just think it's so smart. And if it doesn't necessarily have to be a founder, it doesn't necessarily have to be social media. It could be something like this. It could be a book. It could be a workshop, but just having humans associated is what separates great brands from very mediocre brands.
Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, our founders do something like that. So every Sunday they live stream and they do like a Q&A with our audience, like on YouTube and all social platforms. And they just sort of hang out with the community, use their own product. And they've been doing this for like 260 episodes in a row. It's
Yeah.
like 4 years, 5 years maybe. It's insane, actually, now that I think about it. I just never thought about that as like their personal brand, but now that I do think about it, it's totally that. They're just not using LinkedIn, but it's not text. It's just a different format. It's a live stream.
Exactly. Yeah, and personal brand really helps the people too. Just like this podcast, whether you guys are at StreamYard for 1 year or 10 years, this podcast is going to benefit your personal brand and your career independently, like outside of StreamYard, even though it is StreamYard associated. I use the analogy of like imagine going to a bar and there's a really awesome musician, there's a really awesome singer, and you go up to the singer after and you're like, hey, I loved your songs, loved your music. Where can I find you? Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube? And they're like, oh, nowhere. I'm just at this bar every third Thursday of the month. You would be like, that's insane. But it's the same for your career. Like
Yeah.
you have to build in public, share your work publicly. And this is a great example of y'all sharing your work because you're seeing a ton of qualities about yourself. You're sharing your story. You're being open. You're like, it's like clear that you're creating something where a lot of times if we're only internal facing, our work gets very hidden and buried, even if it is important, but you really do have to work loudly.
I think also if people are trying to shift to another company, if you don't have public facing work, you're really only benefiting your company. You're creating a resume for yourself. If you have some sort of like podcast, video presence, LinkedIn presence, that's going to showcase when you end up leaving the company or something happens, you do have a sort of more creative resume to showcase instead of being like, yeah, I was here for this company and this is what I did for this company. I'm actually a human inside the company is what.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's part of why I got hired for this role, was because I was able to show our manager my portfolio of previous work, including like podcasts and stuff. And so she was able to see like, okay, he's not just like bullshitting. There's like actual public work where he's made something that's related to our product.
Yeah, it's something tangible. And it doesn't even necessarily, I think it's best if it is your face and yourself and your name, but it does not necessarily have to be. I have hired people because they had a really good Taylor Swift Instagram fan page. I hired someone that had a One Direction stan Twitter. I hired someone that had a YouTube channel that was anonymous, but it was like the project manager guru or something. Just having something tangible that you can show, hey, I built this and I created this means so much more than being like, and I increased this metric. Like it's like all bullshit, right? If we can actually see something, like you're way more likely to get the role or the gig or the opportunity.
So something you do extremely well is walk the line between like spicy and smart, like controversial and insightful. Every one of your TikToks, I'm like, oh, that's spicy, but also that's so true and like useful. And sometimes it points things out in a way that might feel politically incorrect to others, but that's what makes it stand out. And I'm curious, like, how you do that. Obviously, I feel like some part of it is to some extent you've always understood and intuited things like this for a long time, it sounds like. But how do you take ideas that could have been boring and instead package them in a way that's actually compelling? And I'll give you an example of one you did. Lots of people say surround yourself with people more successful than you because you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. It's basically cliche at this point. I'm tired of hearing it. It's super boring. No one would like everyone would instantly scroll past that. But what you said in a recent TikTok was date older, more successful men, which is arguably like similar to the first example, but it's just like way better and I get hooked. And it's not clickbait. You're not lying. It's just like a much better packaging of an idea.
Yeah. There's another video I did on that same topic that said if you want to make 6 figures and get your first 6-figure job, but you do not personally have any friends that are making 6 figures, it's never going to happen for you until you have a friend and where it's normalized. The reason why I say that even is because I'm trying to be honest about my own experience and my own progress and what has helped me personally. And I read somewhere, I wish I remembered who to attribute this to, but it's like if you want to make better art, just be more honest. So I try to find parts of my life where I can be super, super honest. And that is a great example of where I'm being honest. Like, yeah, I do only date men that are older and more successful than me because I want to learn and I don't want to waste my time if I'm going on a date with someone younger and less successful. That's kind of wasting my time if it doesn't work out because I'm not getting anything out of it. But if it's somebody more successful, then at least I'm getting something out of it, even if it doesn't work out. But yeah, again, that just comes from my own reflection and honesty where I don't want to bullshit and sugarcoat things because that's not what actually leads to like helping people, right? My background is coming from a place where I didn't know shit about corporate America. I didn't know about how to like work your way up. I didn't know about entrepreneurship and I had to figure it all out on my own. And I think when you come from a place where that's normalized, maybe you think what I'm saying is brash, but if you come from a place where this is new information to you, what I'm saying is actually helpful because it's getting through the bullshit like first page of Google career tips into things that actually work. They just don't sound nice. But I don't care about how people perceive it. I care about the progress or process that happens from it. Although I will say some things I do dramatize. I'm like, oh, this is so problematic. Say no to a meeting if you're not don't belong there. Like obviously like some things are a little dramatized, but I really care about the results of and the access to information and like people having information that's normally gate kept.
No, I was watching your content and I was like, I don't think it's that spicy. I just think she's right. I don't know. I think it's also being a woman in industry. You're sort of like, okay, things have been done the same way. How do we do it differently? Because it hasn't been designed with me in mind. So how do I crack it in a way that, I don't know, you say a lot, you're like, okay, you have to kind of deal with the system, be in it so you can get to the top and then change it. So everything you say, I think, talks to that. It makes sense with that.
Yeah, play the game to win the game, to change the game.
Exactly.
It's so important. We can advocate all we want to our leaders for change, but if you really want to make a change, you have to be a leader and make that yourself. Like you want to guarantee the change will happen, you have to get into the power position yourself, or else it's just kind of wishful thinking.
Yeah, 100%. How do you think delivering your content in this way has helped your work? And what are the differences you've seen?
It's helped my work a lot because it's dropped off some people that maybe I wouldn't normally vibe with. And
Yeah.
I do think that honesty is a monetary privilege. Like the more I've gained success in my career and stability with my clients or my consulting, I've been able to be more and more honest where I would have never said any of this stuff at the start of my career, like 7 years ago, because that would have isolated people right away. So it's been kind of a slow progression as I've become more confident in my opinion and thoughts about the marketing industry as a whole, about content creation, to get more honest. But it's been great because it's, kind of pushed out people that I don't want to work with and really attracted people that get it, like that truly get it. I mean, my top performing posts, I don't necessarily think of them as the ones that are the most views or the most engagement, but the ones where I get a great consulting opportunity from it or I get a client from it. Like those are really my top performing posts in my mind, even though they're the ones that don't perform well. And those are the ones where I'm truly calling out something. I'm like, this is why B2B brands suck on social media. This is why the marketing agency model is trash. Like those are the controversial ones, but those are the ones that get me the most clients too.
Yeah, sort of in this same ballpark. I loved your video on TikTok where you talk about Jesse Eitzler, is how you say his name, an entrepreneur and author who couldn't afford an office. So he spent time working in the Beverly Hills hotel lobby so he could put himself in the room with people who would move the needle for him. Your takeaway was to, quote, spend as much time as humanly possible in spaces where the accomplishment of your goal is already realized, not spaces where people are trying to accomplish your goal. What are in your terms, problematic career cheat codes that you can offer to our audience who want to get into rooms that they're not already in?
What a good question. Oh my
Oh,
God.
thanks.
That is such a good question. Yeah, again, being in places, I think the problem that people run into is they go to places where people are trying to accomplish the goal. So let's say you want to break into tech, you want to get your first job in tech. If you're in a coding boot camp, yes, that's important and you need to go get those skills if that's what you want to do, but you're not going to accomplish your goal just by being in a coding boot camp. You need to go to a co-working space where everyone is already a developer. Like that's where you're going to get the job, that's where it's going to be normalized. Or if you want to be in a leadership position, maybe it's best to go to a smaller company where you're immediately going to get a leadership position, be surrounded by the title of leadership and the normalization of leadership. So you have that confidence going into a role at like a larger company. But the key is not to be around people who are trying to get to the goal, but try to surround yourself with people who have already accomplished the goal. I think conferences are really great for this too. Like South by Southwest was a few weeks ago. That was a great example. And just surrounding yourself with people that are doing what you want to do. Like all of your friends, even like your coworkers, find something in them that you really admire about them and really like dive into that.
Yeah, no, that's great advice.
Thank you.
I feel like maybe there was a series of problematic cheat codes you gave a while back, and one of them was like start a podcast for free advice. I feel like that might be one.
I love that. I think
applies
that's so
here.
smart.
Yeah, it's such a good one. I realized this because I actually have been helping my boyfriend with his podcast. He's had it for about a year and he's in the medical industry. Like he's a doctor. And some of the people that he was interviewing was crazy. Like he's new in his career. He's like, I don't know, 4 years out of fellowship. And he interviewed some of the top people in the industry that are like world renowned. And he's like, it would have taken me 20 years to even have a conversation with them. But just by saying, hey, I have a podcast, you want to come on? I can get a call with anyone. So that's when it really clicked for me. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to start my own podcast because it is a win-win. Like it sounds problematic or whatever, because I'm like, I'm manipulating you for free advice, which sure, that's a part of it. But also it's a win-win because everyone wants to be on a podcast. You're getting your name out there. You're like sharing audiences. Yeah, I actually just got this book called Content-Based Marketing, exactly about this. And I'm excited to like dive a little bit further into the like mechanics behind it and the psychology of why it works so well. But yeah, and any place where you can have a curation of content, it's such a power position.
I don't feel like it's that problematic. I just feel like you're putting to words what's actually happening. I think people want to have a podcast not only to explore the things that they like to talk about, but they also want to talk to the people who are thought leaders in that space. So yeah, maybe if you break it down, it's like, yeah, you want free advice and they'll get promotion out of it. But to me, it just makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's how I'm framing it too. Like it's not really that problematic, but I'm framing it as problematic and framing it as manipulative. And you can think of it in any way, right? You can think of it as manipulative. You can think of it as helpful. I also give the advice of creating a networking event, hosting your own networking event. Maybe that's Saturday morning coffees at your apartment where you're making your apartment into a little coffee shop and inviting over some friends or people in your industry. I do a dinner every single month of people I admire, people that are more successful than me in different ways that I want to learn from. And again, I frame this as problematic, as like I'm kind of manipulating people into getting free advice, but also it's a win-win-win. Everybody wants to go to meet other cool people.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Earlier,
Yeah.
you guys were talking about like gatekeepers and, breaking the system and stuff like that. Now we're talking about podcasts. I feel like this is a good time to bring up your podcast. Can you
Yeah.
explain this logo? Let's see if it'll focus.
So my podcast is called Slay the Gatekeeper. I think I'm 3 episodes in. Yeah, the logo is so fun.
I love the
It
logo.
actually,
It's so
I had a
fun.
really, yeah, I had a really great designer.
We could
Instead of
see,
going
yeah.
with, instead of going with a podcast cover designer, I went with a musical artist cover designer. She's really cool. I just made her a Pinterest board, and that's the magic she created. But Slay the Gatekeeper means exposing things that are normally gatekept. Like I said, my story is I've had to learn a lot of this on my own. And there's been so many like, oh my God, I wish I would have known that moments throughout my career. And I just want to lay it all out. Like, this is exactly how to use LinkedIn to build your personal brand to get a higher paying job. This is exactly how to get your first tech job or your first 6-figure job. This is exactly how to get your first freelance client. Like, I want to walk people through the exact steps I took so they can have that information so there's not such a learning curve. Because I truly believe with like the internet, our technology, the amount of leverage we all have, there's so much more like equality, and the playing field is so much more leveled right now. I mean, the internet it doesn't matter where you're from or what country you live in or whatever. If you have access to this information, you can make money, you can have a great career, you can accomplish your goals, but it's really just an information gap. So I want my podcast to solve that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And can you tell us what was on the Pinterest board?
So on the Pinterest board, I had some old vintagey magazine photos and newspaper articles of women at rallies and marches. I just thought that was cool. And I had some collage stuff on the Pinterest board too, and some animals. So I feel like that's all really well.
Who's the guy doing yoga?
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
Oh, okay, cool.
Or does
All
he
right.
have some
So
sort of
cool.
like spear or javelin?
Yes, I did have
Yeah.
a sword. I wanted a sword somewhere
Oh,
because
that's what
we're
it was.
We're slaying them.
I love the logo. It really stands out among all the other like cookie cutter stuff out there.
Thank
Oh my
you. Yeah,
God.
if you want to work with my designer, her Instagram is Cece's Endless Pizza.
Shout out.
I love that.
If someone listening is on the fence about whether to start a podcast or not, what would you tell them to push them to start one? Why should they? What benefits are you seeing from having a podcast?
I would tell them first, you do not need to make it a whole thing. Like, my podcast started off as a Patreon with voice memos on my iPhone. No fancy equipment, nothing. Literally just voice memos. It's terrible, but it was a V1. It was a place to start. Now my podcast is still not anything crazy. It's a $100 mic. It is no video. They're 20 minutes long, and it's topics I already know a lot about. I'm not interviewing guests yet. Like, you can start iterative. You don't have to start with this big giant thing. I mean, just use StreamYard. It's easy way to start. But yeah, I would say you don't have to get overwhelmed. You don't have to think it has to be this big thing. Like, start small. But also the benefits, just having a practice of creating content is so powerful. It's the same as the practice of writing, where you're sharing your insights, you're reflecting back. And if you have had any writing practice in your life at all, you know how powerful that can be for your self-development. And then if you do interview people, you can talk to anybody you want, like maybe not anybody, but just the networking effect that it has is really, really huge. So I really encourage everyone to, try it out. Maybe if podcasting isn't your thing, maybe that's a newsletter every week or every month. Maybe that's a YouTube channel. Maybe that is, a Substack or a Medium blog. But start with just one platform, posting one time a week for 1 year, and it will literally change the trajectory of your career.
Yeah. And I think also places like Medium or Substack or a newsletter can lead someone to gain the confidence for a podcast or a YouTube channel, because sometimes people are like, yeah, I feel really comfortable with talking on camera, but like ask me to write a 5-paragraph newsletter and that's my nightmare. Or the opposite, like I'm not ready to get in front of camera. How can I list out my ideas, get sort of a content flow going, and then maybe I'll gain the confidence for doing a podcast. I think everybody can be different, but those are great ideas to do once a week for a year, 52 entries, and see how it goes. Now I'm like, should I start a newsletter?
Do it. Do it.
I'll
Do it.
figure
Do
out.
it.
I know.
Do it.
This is a little bit of a topic change, but I would love to know what your daily routine looks like if you have one. What is a typical day in your life? Again, if there is a typical day, I know it's different when you kind of work for yourself.
Typical day, I wake up and I have what I call daily non-negotiables, which are the things that I absolutely have to do. Does not matter if I'm tired, if I don't have time, I have to do at least like 10 seconds of something. So I have meditation. I just have to do it for 10, 30 seconds, 1 minute maybe. I don't overwhelm myself. Moving my body, again, I can literally just do it for 30 seconds. Journaling, journal one line. That's all I need. So very small shifts to start my day. Then I usually check email, Slack, text, stuff like that. Then I create content. I create at least one piece of content per platform every single day. Usually that is a TikTok and a LinkedIn post. And then in the afternoon, I typically have meetings. I run a cohort. I have brand deals. And in the evening, usually I walk my dogs or hang out with my friends or go to yoga or something fun.
Nice. Awesome. I love that I think a lot of creators I'm seeing this happen more now where I think I follow this one creator who's a runner and she lost like over 100 pounds and she was really, really depressed before she started her journey. But she was like, I started with walking and doing a quick walk from like where I was to like a tree. And then now she's running like ultra marathons. Like she really had such a slow process to getting to that point. And it's like just starting super small. So I feel like I'm seeing a trend of creators, which is, I think, for the best, of starting super, super small with things like one line of a journal, like moving your body for 10 minutes or 10 seconds even, because once you start, it's easier to keep going. I just think I'm very happy that the trend is going that way, because I think before this point, people used to be like, yeah, like you should be working out like 5 times a week and you should be writing your journal 3 pages a day. And you should be doing this, and that may not be easy for someone who has not done that every single day for their whole life to start approaching. It feels insurmountable. So I love that you start doing that. So say you're having a bad day and you write one line in your journal, you can be like, yeah, and I did it anyway.
Yeah, I picked this up from Atomic Habits, where it said, if you don't feel like going to the gym, just drive to the gym so you can check it off. That like the hardest part about being at the gym is not halfway through when you're finishing your workout. It's actually putting on gym clothes and driving to the gym. That is the hardest part of it all. And that really stuck with me. I'm like, okay, shit, that's great. Like, if that's going to be your habit, I mean, I don't go to the gym. I work out outside. But that's why I just write one line in my journal, or just go on a walk enough so my dog pees and comes back. But yeah, absolute minimum viable product is always going to be better than doing nothing, because the alternative to that is you just don't do it and you don't build the habit and you get frustrated with yourself, and then you have negative self-talk and it's this whole negative spiral.
100%.
So instead of that, celebrate the little things.
100%. Because then you can build it up if you want to, or you can have small habits that you like that you put into your day.
Exactly.
Either way. I see that you have an affiliate link for tobemagnetic.com. What are the tools that have helped you cultivate the mindset that you have now? And what do you think entrepreneurs, creators, etc., are missing from their personal toolboxes?
Oh, this is so good. So if listeners don't know what To Be Magnetic is, it is something called subconscious reprogramming. That's essentially meditation, but it's really wild. It is powerful, used with caution. But the tools, I think that a lot of entrepreneurs get very much in the hustle and grind mode and lose connection with kind of the emotional or even spiritual aspect of themselves. And that's really where the growth happens. Like your growth, getting to the next level, happens of overcoming these barriers or blocks that you have. And so that does require a internal approach. So the tools that I encourage more entrepreneurs, more content creators to use: breath work, yoga, meditation, therapy, all super, super important.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Any mind-altering substances?
Yes, that too. I didn't know if since this was a company, if
We
I'm
can
allowed.
decide later whether or not we want to keep it.
Yeah, don't
No,
worry.
I definitely encourage the use of psychedelics. Yes, that's been really transformative in my own personal life, my own career, my own self development. It's one of the cheat codes I talked about because, at least in Austin, it's something that, I mean, Austin has a ton of self made tech millionaires and billionaires. And people in that space, I mean, everybody uses psychedelics in very respectful and poised ways. Like, there are events and ceremonies like tied around entrepreneurship and goal setting and unblocking, which is crazy. And a lot of people just don't talk about it. So I don't want to like expose anyone, but I do want to share that because it is something that is actually very gatekept from successful people. They don't really want other people to know about it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've heard a lot of good things about doing those sort of rituals, especially with trauma, but I haven't heard as many about entrepreneurship, and that's really interesting. I was going to ask you a question about Austin. I know I sort of prefaced this before we started talking. I know you live there and you attended South by Southwest. My best friend just moved there yesterday, and when I visited, it feels like a really creative haven on the rise. What has living in Austin offered your business and your creativity?
Oh my gosh, I literally just got goosebumps from that question. It's been amazing. I lived in Dallas before this, and Dallas was fun. It's fine. It's a big city. But the biggest difference between Dallas and Austin, and just Austin versus every other place I've lived, is there is this amazing community of like self made people that are very ambitious, that are really excited to support and encourage each other. And there are so many amazing like groups and connections and people that are very ungatekeeping. Like everybody is sharing information, sharing resources, being very open. And I just love that about Austin. It has been so transformative in my career because everybody is a transplant from somewhere else. Everybody is trying to make it for themselves, but also everyone is so mindful and community focused and, excited to share. And I think Austin is just an incredible place to be right now. If you're in tech, if you're a content creator, if you're any sort of ambitious person.
No, awesome. Yeah, I felt that when I was there. I've been there twice now, and I'm like, I could move here. I could move here. And I really like being there. I think they have really great outdoor dining, really great live music. Like it just feels very different. And it feels like it's on the rise because I live in New York. Mo also lives in Montreal. I mean, like another coworker lives in Toronto. We have some friends in LA. And LA and New York have been big staples, I think, in tech and industry and content creation and creativity. And I think when I go to Austin, I'm like, oh, this feels like it's the beginning of something really cool. Really, really cool.
I've never lived in LA, but I have lived in New York, and Austin I think New York is awesome because it has it's obviously an incredible place and has such ambitious people, but the difference is I think Austin just has this beautiful balance of personal inward growth and reflection, again, mindfulness, spirituality, wellness, very much paired with entrepreneurship and drive and ambition. And when I travel other places, I'm like, it really seems like it's a either or. Like you either go with the entrepreneur crowd or you go with like the wellness or woo woo crowd. In Austin, it's very integrated, which is so cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it creates a lot of balance too. So you're not overworked.
If you were to pitch to our manager why StreamYard should be at South by Southwest, what would you tell her?
I mean, personally, as a content creator, South by Southwest was the best content creator networking thing I have ever been to in my life. And this was the first South by Southwest truly after a couple years because the pandemic and then it was virtual, whatever. This was like the first real one that I've ever been to. And the amount of content creators just eager and looking for opportunities for brands to partner with, for other people to connect with was crazy. And there was a mismatch of a lot more content creators than brands that work with content creators.
Good to know.
So
That's juicy.
huge opportunity.
We're going to clip this and send this to her right after.
What's her name?
Joanne.
Joanne. Okay, Joanne, can't wait to meet you next year at South by.
There's the manifestation. There we
Well
go.
done. Well done. So I want to dig into something you mentioned earlier. You only work out outside. I love that. And it's kind of, it feels like evolutionarily, that's probably more aligned with our genetics and what we did as cavemen. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, the reason why I work out outside is I read something somewhere about mobility and lifting weights and how actually lifting weights at the gym, since it's very even surface and you're lifting an even amount of weights on both sides, actually is not great for mobility. And I live by a park that has a ton of giant rocks on this beautiful beach. So I'm like, why would I not just work out there? The surfaces are uneven, lifting rocks is uneven, but it just feels so much happier. It's under the sun, it's not under artificial lighting. So yeah, it feels really great. It's free, and I've it's helped a lot with mobility and flexibility rather than just strength.
Okay. And are you like bringing weights outside and you're just
No, I
doing
lift
what you
rocks.
Oh, you're literally where are you
That's
finding these
awesome.
rocks?
There's a lot of rocks in Austin. We have a lot of limestone, so they'll just be like 40, 50-pound rocks everywhere.
That's so
You're making
funny.
a great pitch for Austin.
This reminds me, I'm gonna make a TikTok about lifting rocks. I think that would perform really well.
100%.
That is hysterical. I'm gonna send it to my two friends who live in Austin. Like, yeah, I just PB'd on this like huge rock, man. Like, not some like 100-pound weights. I hate the gym, so anything that's not the gym, I'm like, it just
Me
feels
too.
like where dreams go
I
to
hate
die.
the gym. It's so boring. It's not fun, and the lighting is awful. I mean,
Agree.
I get like going to a Pilates class or yoga class or like a really nice gym that's fancy and feels like a spa. But if I want an actual workout, I don't know, a gym just is boring to me.
I hate going. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
It's uninspiring.
I feel like somebody could start a whole movement around this about like lifting outdoors and stuff.
This is one of those things where I kind of think it's normal because I'm living in my own weird bubble, and until I vocalize it, I'm like, wait, that might be weird.
See, I think it's more normal than you think.
Yeah. Maybe like I think we're numb to what's interesting about us in our lives. So like Katie, maybe there's something that you do every day, like a weird little juice shop you go to that has like a pigeon that lives outside with a bow, or I don't know, I was like making up something. But it's something very that's totally real. That could happen. But
Especially in
something
New
very
York.
weird that you see every day that somebody else would think is really fascinating. A lot of good content comes from that if you can find out what it is about your life that is actually, oh, that's not boring. Oh, that is kind of interesting and kind of weird. Okay, I'm going to capture that.
I love that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Also, Katie was laughing earlier because we always try to make a caveman reference in every episode.
He's done it. I did it one time in the first episode, and he said to me once, he's like, every episode I'm going to try to make a caveman reference. So when he did it, I was like,
wait, do you think cavemen lifted rocks intentionally, or it just like they happened to do it because it was part of their chores?
both.
Oh.
I think
Like maybe there's rock lifting competitions.
I think that's probably what
Oh my
evolved
God, for
in.
sure.
I think what it had to be is they had to move rocks to build their society and their community. So they had to move rocks to make way for creating space. And then they were like, oh, they probably realized that they were gaining muscle and that it could help them lift heavier things or deal with hunting or, I don't know, like carry babies or other community members if they were sick. I'm like really thinking about this now. And then they were like, oh, let's have a competition for lifting rocks.
There's had to be one dude that's like, oh, you can't lift this rock, man. Like that sucks. Like I can lift this big rock.
100%.
Definitely.
100%. That's so funny. I was like, Mo, I can't believe he did it. He did it.
Wow, that was really organic, a really organic caveman integration.
And he was looking at me like, I did it. I did it.
So we would love to get your fundamental advice on like TikTok and LinkedIn, like everything you need to know in 5 minutes to get started. You're an expert on both of these. You teach courses on both of those. We'll put your links in the description. Let's start with LinkedIn.
Okay, easy peasy. So first thing you need to do is optimize your profile, but optimize your profile to look more like a thought leader and not just an employee. So your header, your banner image, the thing on the top, either do a picture of you speaking or make something on Canva that looks nice. Your featured section, maybe add a digital product, add your podcast, add your newsletter. If you're creating something and you're adding that into your featured section, it looks really good. If not, add something that you've created, add a blog post you've written, something, and just fill out every aspect of your LinkedIn profile and then post one time per week. That's really all you need to start with. There's 1 billion users on LinkedIn now, which is crazy, and less than 1% of those post once a week. So if you can just start posting once per week, you're going to rank very high. So easiest way to start LinkedIn, optimize your profile, post once per week. And then on TikTok, I actually think the hardest part about TikTok is just getting in the habit of posting. Where posting on LinkedIn is a little bit easier. posting on TikTok, you kind of have to show your face, you have to be talking. There's a lot of different elements and variables. So I recommend posting one TikTok every day. Even if it's bad, just getting in the habit of posting. Even if you post for 365 days and every single post is just a video of you being like, I'm literally just trying to build this habit. I don't know what to post. Or if 5 out of 7 of the week is like you being like, I don't know what to post. It's just the fear of being on camera and putting yourself out there. So TikTok, don't overthink it. Literally just post every single day. Post a bad post. Like give yourself permission to post badly. And then you're going to look back after doing it for a month or 2 months and start to see some patterns, start to see where you can optimize, start to come up with better ideas. But it starts with bad TikToks.
But Courtney, what if I feel cringe? Do you want to talk to us about this cringe mountain idea that you definitely invented?
Cringe rock.
No, I didn't invent Cringe Mountain. It's invented by Erica Mallet. She's another TikToker. She's awesome. But Cringe Mountain, you can imagine a mountain with 2 valleys on either side. And the left side is all the people that are going to talk shit about you and be like, who does she think she is? Who does he think he is? What are they doing? As you climb up this cringe mountain, and everybody is cringing at you and you're cringing at yourself climbing up the cringe mountain. But once you get over to the other side and you get over the hump and you go into the valley of cool, that's all of the people that have also overcome the cringe mountain. That's all of the other content creators that are going to cheer you on. That's all of the people that you admire. But just know that the people that are going to talk shit are never the people that have already overcame the cringe mountain. It's the people that are way too afraid to try. So understand the cringe mountain, but also understand that the fear of being seen is very, very real. Everybody experiences it. And it usually stems from some sort of childhood trauma where it was not safe to be seen. Maybe you were embarrassed on stage. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe your parents said your art was silly. Whatever it was, it is important to address that and overcome whatever's blocking you from the fear of being seen. So you can address that in your own personal practices, running, therapy, meditation, whatever it is that you do. Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's the cringe mountain. I know you talk about on your TikTok. Oh, the dog. Who's the dog?
So cute.
That's my puppy.
What's his name?
His name's
Can we
Oso.
have him? Can we have him on the
I have
pod?
2, yeah.
Oso.
Oso.
My boyfriend
Let's see if
almost
we can-
adopted a dog named Oso too.
I'll go get him.
Let's do it. This is awesome.
I love the animal feature. He's like, nah.
There's food here, so I think they're probably trying to steal the food.
Okay, he can make a cameo later.
Oh.
Cameo later, yeah.
No, my boyfriend almost adopted a dog named Oso, and he was such a big, cute dog. But we were in the city, and he ended up going to a family in upstate New York, and it totally made sense because he was huge. So we were like, it's probably a better option. I want to know, because you've talked about in your TikTok about your process of repurposing. Say you start out with like one longer form video or one long LinkedIn post. How do you end up repurposing that into more content?
Yeah, so when I started on TikTok, I already had this library of like 5 years of LinkedIn content. So I was in a position where I already knew these posts worked. I just had to record them as videos. So it's like volume of content is important if you want to expand to a different platform, if you want to continue your content creation journey. So just putting that out there, because a lot of people are like, oh, you grew really fast, you blew up overnight. I'm like, no, it was actually 5 years of optimizing my LinkedIn content to get to even posting my first TikTok. But there's a couple of ways to repurpose your content. One is just straight up repost it. And I do this all the time. If I have a video that performs well, I will post it every single quarter for like 2 years. Like I will keep posting the same thing over and over. But also, you can take a longer form piece of content like a podcast, pull those into clips, or you can take something like a blog. If you have a long form blog, you can make 10 different LinkedIn posts out of that. So I am all about maximizing content. I like to think of it of it's not necessarily finding 100 different things to say. It's about finding how to say the same 2 or 3 messages 100 different ways. So I think in content creation, a lot of us are like, oh, I already said that. I already posted that. I can't do that again. But really the goal is to say the same thing and post the same thing over and over and over. So my own personal process, I post something on LinkedIn and then I use that as a script for my TikTok, usually is my newsletter as well. And then from there, I just repurpose that video to YouTube Shorts to Reels, and then I'll repurpose the copy from the LinkedIn post and to my newsletter to Twitter/X and wherever else it needs to go.
That's awesome. And how do you keep all of that organized? Do you have some sort of folder or organizational, I don't know, like how do you organize all of this content? Do you have like a content calendar that you go by? What is your process?
I just go by vibes, honestly.
I just
No,
go
it was
by
pure
vibes.
it was pure chaos for a while. I had a checklist that was like every single thing I wanted to post a day. So I just had to post one TikTok. It could be bad, one LinkedIn post, one Instagram. So I would just get lazy and start repurposing, but then it ended up working. So yeah, pure chaos. But luckily now I have a better system where I delegate a lot of this, where I just have to post the TikTok and I know it's automatically going to go up on, Instagram Reels and on YouTube because I have a team that does that. However, there are a lot of tools that will repurpose it for you. I've heard good things about Repurpose IO. Doesn't StreamYard have some clipping features as
Yeah.
well that I think could be great? So yeah, don't be afraid to post the same thing over and over.
Yeah, I think it's people talk about the benefits of it. It's great. It's a great thing to do, and it's not cringy to post it multiple times.
Exactly. Most people won't know.
Exactly.
Every time you mention StreamYard, I feel like looking into the camera and being like, Courtney is not sponsored by StreamYard. At least not yet. But like, I love that you just organically bring it in there.
Well, thank you. I do love StreamYard. I mean, I've used it on and off for 4 years probably on like a ton of different projects. So
Nice.
love StreamYard. It always impresses clients.
We love to hear that.
Yeah, we've been trying to figure out like how, like the balance of how much we want to talk about StreamYard in this podcast versus like how much it should just be about the creators. But yeah, what do you think? Give us some free advice on this.
I'd say 90-10, like 90% about the creators, maybe 10%. If you do the 10%, maybe make it something instructional or value driven of exactly how to do something or have it be organic. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a really good question. I mean, I just haven't, I don't know. I think maybe test it out, see what works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'll share some behind the scenes. We have like the only time we do it right now is the intro and the outro. And if a guest happens to mention it, they happen to mention it. We really don't want to like push it or be salesy about it. But like from February to March, we saw a massive jump in the amount of people that sign up for StreamYard through the link that we put in the description. So it's been awesome, even though we're not even like, or maybe it's precisely because we're not being in your face about it. So that's why we're like, okay, whatever we're doing is kind of working.
Bravo. That's really, really exciting.
Yeah. I think the idea was sort of, I don't know, doing something completely different, like creating content with it, sort of showing it off, but not being like so preachy about StreamYard. Here are all content creators who use StreamYard. I think we ask a multitude of people whether they've never heard of it before or they're a really frequent user. And I think it's interesting because I think it shows another side to the brand, to us, but also like we can show it in action. It isn't like it's completely separated from the brand.
Yeah, it's interesting because with tools, it's like if somebody is not a user, they're not going to care about tips or tricks or whatever. And I think that's a huge issue that SaaS companies do is their social or their content is a lot about like, here's how to use it and here's whatever, when that literally does not matter and like does not attract new users at all. So it's an interesting question. But like you guys are saying, you're doing something totally different. That's quite new, especially for a SaaS company. So you guys are the trailblazers.
Pioneers.
I'm happy that your marketing leaders are, excited about this. Because I think that means they're great leaders that are very in touch with the marketing world right now, which I don't think every marketing leader is.
Yeah.
Joanne, that's you.
Joanne's such a G. We love Joanne. No, I worked for a CMO at a unicorn startup that told me social media was a fad, like a trend that was going away. And so they didn't invest at all into social media. I'm like, that's crazy. A CMO that thinks social media is a fad is crazy. And it wasn't like he was old. He was like 40.
Totally disconnected though.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is a crazy take that I don't think most people agree with at all.
It's very common in the advertising world, like traditional advertising world. It is a very interesting and weird culture where if you come from that, it's all about traditional, it's all about commercials and billboards, and it's all about going through these like very specific tracks in your career. It's quite an interesting culture, but I think we're seeing the shift of especially new tech startups not necessarily wanting to work with traditional advertising agencies, even though they have the prestige, because that's kind of still the mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. And we're going to keep all that in just to show people like what it's like to think about a podcast as a brand and like
Definitely keep it
finding
in.
the balance. Yeah.
I love getting meta.
Literally.
Let's talk about your content diet. So
Mm.
let's start off by discussing what it's not. You do not have a TV, right?
Correct.
How did you make that decision? Why did you make that decision?
Because I was tired of using the excuse, I don't have time. And I do use that excuse a lot. Oh, why am I not doing this? I don't have time. I didn't have time to work out today. I didn't have time to go run this errand today. And having a TV just made that a moot point. Like, oh, I didn't have time. Well, how much time did I spend watching TV? An hour? Okay, I did have time. And I just started to call myself out on the bullshit. So when I moved into my house, I just didn't buy a TV for it. But yeah, it's you're getting spicy, Mo. I don't I don't consume TV. I don't consume the news either, which is problematic. I know that's probably my most problematic life thing that I've adopted.
I think for mental health, I think a lot of people are. I consume a lot of the news, and a lot of the advice I see from people on Reddit when they're like, I'm really depressed from reading all of this, people are like, take breaks or don't consume it at all. Because, I mean, this might be a hot take. I think I have many layered opinions about this, but I think we're at a point right now in our government where there isn't much we can do other than actually make voting or political choices to influence higher up people, because I feel like a lot of us have tried a lot of different things. And we're at a point where radical things need to change, and consuming the news every day and feeling like that radical change isn't near is not going to make you a better citizen, in my opinion. I think it's going to be a really long period of time before things change. And if consuming the news makes you less empowered to do that, then it's not helpful to you.
Yeah, I think of outcomes. Like I think of how can I personally have the best outcome on the world? How can I personally create the most value for the world and help the most people? And the way that I've identified, there's a couple of ways I've identified that, but one of the main ways is helping people monetarily, like supporting people and getting the information that they need so they can be monetarily successful, so they can have power over their own life. And I've seen success in helping people do this. I'm like, that needs to be a huge focus. And I just try to limit things that take me away from that focus. Another way that I really want to help the world is like being in power myself. I don't want to be in politics or anything, but like how can I be in power myself? How can I help the most people? Again, if I just like take a step back and look at what do I need to be doing every day? What do I need to be focused on? What does my day need to look like? And what content like is going to help me do that? That is just not one of those things. Now there are very specific things. I've actually, oh my gosh, we're getting really spicy here. But I made the decision in college actually that I was going to, instead of trying to learn about every single issue and every single cause, I was going to really dive into one thing, again, because of the outcome. Because can I help like every single cause? Yes, I can donate $50 here and $10 there and volunteer for 3 hours here. But how I'm actually going to make a change, and a significant change, is if I pick one cause and put all of my money I'm donating into there, all of my volunteer time there, like every single extra time. That's how I actually can influence. Like it has been powerful, and I have seen that. And the thing that I've chose is supporting farmers and ranchers in Texas, especially in regenerative agriculture, something I'm really passionate about. And I've just found putting my effort into that, and like even consuming content and news around that, like that is news that I do consume, but putting all of my effort into that has been much more effective in supporting that cause than if I were to try to just go shallow into a bunch of things to make myself feel good and to make myself feel like, oh, I'm so like helpful, or I'm like the most woke or whatever. Because like a lot of things that I noticed myself doing were kind of bullshit just so people like saw me as posturing. So anyways, I care about outcomes.
Yeah, thank you for the honesty. That's such a great answer to that question.
Yeah, thank you for getting deep with me.
Yeah. So what is your content diet like nowadays?
Yeah, so I want to share a really brief story. I was managing the personal brand for this CEO, very, very successful CEO. He's this self-made guy. He's amazing. He has a legal app, and I was running his personal Instagram. So the first time I logged onto his Instagram, and just scrolled through the feed, I was shocked. I had never seen anything like it before. All of the memes were like, when your relationship is so great and you love your wife. And then it was like, so like cute little bears. And then it'd be like 5 money motivation tips. And then it would be like an inspirational quote. And then it would be like a 30-second meditation, scroll break. And it was so positive and so encouraging. I was like, people consume, like, this is his content diet. Holy shit. I was mind blown. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. So, cause with my feed at the time was like random memes about like, oh, when you feel ugly, or like when you're broke, or ha ha ha, like going out, like, I don't know, just random shit, like celebrities. And I'm like, shit, I need to be on what this guy is on. So I like truly just ask myself as I'm scrolling, like, does this thing serve me? Is this helping me, or is this negative? And I will just unfollow. So my content diet now is a lot of that. Like, I just have had that feed in mind and like trying to curate my feed to be that. Because if we're like, how amazing would our lives be if our content was so delusionally positive, encouraging, happy, and exciting?
Yeah.
I love that, because the way you phrase that question, like, what is he on? Typically, people would like associate that with a mind-altering substance, and what they don't realize is that the content you consume is also a mind-altering substance.
It is.
100%.
It's so powerful. What another thing that I did when I transitioned to working for myself, I say transition, but really I was laid off and I was forced to. So I had to really get in the mindset quick. I made a new Twitter account and I only followed entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, freelancers, just a ton of people. And then I deleted every other social media app off of my phone and only consumed that Twitter feed for like a few months, like a whole summer. And that really shifted my mind too, because at the time I didn't know a lot of entrepreneurs. I didn't know other freelancers or people on their own. So it shifted my mindset for that to be normalized. But I highly recommend just taking a look at your content diet. And fasting from content is a good way to get a good look at that. So just take breaks from social media, take a few days off or a week off. And when you come back, it'll be pretty clear of like, okay, this isn't good for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. We were just at a conference in LA last week, and I didn't consume as much content as usual. And then when I came back, I looked at my feed and I was like, I can't believe I was into this like 2 weeks ago. You just need like a reset. And I'm glad TikTok has that like reset algorithm thing now.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah, you can do this thing in the
Yeah.
settings where you can like reset your algorithm, and it'll like start you from scratch.
What? I didn't know that.
So cool. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna try that out. Although my TikTok feed is pretty positive.
Oh, okay. Right. You've done the work of like curating it at this point to be what you want already. So that makes
Yeah,
sense.
LinkedIn has a really great feature to do that too. You can curate your LinkedIn feed pretty well, and a lot of people think like, oh, LinkedIn is boring, whatever. LinkedIn's not boring. There's a lot of really great people on LinkedIn. I actually find it to be pretty positive. So you can curate your LinkedIn feed too.
Yeah, I had a similar problem with LinkedIn at the beginning where I was like, I don't like any of this stuff, but it was because I wasn't following the right people, and then I had to like find people who knew, like there were curators who were like, go follow these people if you want to learn about this stuff. And then I followed them and I was like, oh, so there are people posting like content that I actually like here.
Yeah, you bring up a great point too. Content curation is a great content strategy. If you are not really a content creator, but you still want to be, or you still want to build your personal brand, you can go the Tim Ferriss route and just curate. If you don't know, Tim Ferriss has all of his books. He didn't write them. He just asked other people questions and put them in a book. He doesn't write his newsletter. He just like rounds up links of articles he likes and puts them in a newsletter. He doesn't create content, he curates content, and there is a very powerful place for content curators, and it is such a great alternative to building your personal brand if you don't want to actually create content.
That's super smart. I have to look into his stuff. I really like that idea.
He's in Austin.
He is in Austin.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love Austin. I really do.
Austin's so great. Love Austin. Oh, also you can mute words. Just a random tip. Most social media platforms, you can mute words. So figure out what words you don't want to see or topics and mute that.
Oh, could you give us some examples or like stuff? I don't know how comfortable you
Yeah.
feel sharing.
I
like,
know, yeah,
your-
for sure.
yeah.
I've never muted any words because mine it's pretty easy. But I think a good place to start is maybe if there's like a celebrity you find annoying and you have a negative reaction every time you see them, just mute that. Or maybe if you actually, one I have muted is I don't care about sports, and I just feel like it clutters my feed. I don't care about like sports announcements or what's going on. So I've muted a lot of words around sports. Sorry, sports fans.
That's okay. You're allowed.
Yeah. All right. Final question before we start to wrap it up in about 5 minutes. Without revealing confidential details, can you walk us through the process of ghostwriting for executives? How do you capture their voice and their message?
So it starts off with a kickoff call where I just learn about their goals. It's very interesting, people's goals. Sometimes they want to sell their company and they want to look better. Sometimes they want funding. Sometimes they want more sales or users. Sometimes they just want to be perceived as more powerful. So I figure out the goal. Then I usually do some sort of Zoom interview where it's kind of like a podcast interview. I ask them a ton of questions. I do a bit of research beforehand so I know what I'm asking them. And then I use the transcript of that call as a base for writing copy. So it is in their words. Sometimes things just need to be structured a bit easier, or structured in a way that's more clear for social media or in a social media way. And then I send it to them for approval and then it gets approved. This is a really similar process that ghostwriters use as well for like ghostwriting books and memoirs.
Nice. No, that makes a lot of sense.
It's fun.
Take it away, Katie.
So we like on the podcast to ask at the end of our interviews to, if you can shine the spotlight on another creator, who else should our audience watch?
Ooh, that's such a good one. Yeah, let me find this guy's last name because I follow him on TikTok and I think he's just an incredible. Okay, his name's Mickey. What's his last name? Okay,
Mouse?
sorry guys. I can't find this guy's name.
Is it Mouse?
Mickey. No. Okay, wait. Hold on. I was just on a call with a brand that we're like sharing a collab on. Sorry, Nikki. I know your last name.
Oh, Nikki.
I
with
thought
an
it
M.
was
Okay.
Mickey too.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
It's Nikki. Maybe I'm spelling it wrong. Okay, maybe I should give you another one
Okay.
because I can't find this guy's last name. Okay, let me go on my TikTok favorites because I need to think.
I know it's hard.
This is really hard.
When you're asked, it's like, oh my God, I don't
Oh,
know.
no, I have a good one. Okay. So I have been referencing Katie Zoo's TikToks in almost all of my newsletters for the last few months. There's always a banger that I share with people. Her name is KATIEXU, and on TikTok, she is Katie X Socials. Her stuff is so good. I think she's one of the very few content creators that really effortlessly blends like marketing, content creation, and psychology together. So definitely check out Katie Zoo.
Awesome. Okay.
Oh, I've seen some of her stuff. She's awesome. Oh, we should have her on. I'll
You
reach
should
out.
have her on.
Yeah.
She's so good. And she's in New York.
Oh, love that.
Oh.
Amazing. So no time zone issues. Amazing.
Exactly.
What's a product or a piece of content that you're currently obsessed with and why? It could be a movie, a TV show, could be a TikTok, could be really anything.
Okay, this is going to sound silly because it's become a meme, but you guys know the shadow work journals that have kind of blown up
Yeah.
on TikTok? Wait, am I allowed to talk about drugs?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, this is such an awesome story. I went to go buy weed. Sorry, guy. Oh, it's legal. It's legal where y'all live. This is just taboo in Texas. I went to go buy weed, and the weed guy was selling shadow work journals, which is just so funny because that's so often. He's like, yeah, and like make sure to set your intention and make sure. Anyways, so they have a trilogy now where there's like a shadow work journal, a gratitude journal, and a manifestation journal. But these people live in Texas, and I just think it's so smart that they are pairing up with drug dealers, and they're going viral on TikTok. Like their marketing strategy is something that is insane that I've never seen before. It's just like so absurd. I think it's amazing, and their products are really good. I use them every day. That's like kind of my daily journal and meditation. Also, I shouldn't call weed dealers drug dealers because again, it's like legal everywhere, but it's hilarious and it's so funny. So shadow work journals, check them out.
That's so smart. My friend who just moved to Austin, she was like, the shadow work journal that I found on TikTok is amazing. It's changing my life. So interesting, the pairing there.
Also, I heard the people that made it are like this young couple. I think they're like 22 or something, and they're just like killing it and being super successful.
My
And I think that's
gosh,
amazing.
That's insane. Good for them. Wow.
I know.
They got a crazy marketing strategy that's working for them.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. Any final words you want to leave the audience with?
I would encourage everybody here to consider building your personal brand and consider if you actually don't want to do it and you're afraid of privacy or you feel weird about it, or if you're just afraid of being seen. Like figure out which one of those it is. Personal brand is not for everyone. You might not want to do it and that's fine, but know the reason why. And if the reason why is a bullshit reason, maybe call yourself out on that.
Yeah, that's great advice. And where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Instagram at Courtlyn Johnson or on TikTok at Courtney_Johnson. And all of my links and everything are there. And my podcast is on Spotify and it's called Slay the Gatekeeper.
Amazing. Courtney, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was very, very fun. And
Thank y'all.
I'm so excited for everybody to watch it.
Thank y'all. This is so fun.
And let's do the free, or maybe this will be a post-amble.
Post-amble, yeah.
How do you feel? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
We recorded 2 episodes back to back today. We've been recording for 3.5 hours. So I'm a little delirious.
Yeah, I feel high from exhaustion.
Feel a little crazy, but it's fun. We had 2 really fun guests on the podcast today. You'll see the second one after this episode, but let's talk about Courtney Johnson. She seems like someone I would be friends with. We talked a lot about Austin and creating content and how she has different perspectives to, I don't know, creating your own business, being an entrepreneur and influencer. And I think it's really, really smart. I've seen one other person do sort of the note advice that she's done. And I think it was Ellie Rallo. I think that's how you say her name. But it's more like sort of mental health, personal advice. I don't know. Personally, I think a lot of what she says is just really honest. And I think she worries sometimes, or maybe she doesn't worry. She just like says it's a bit problematic. But I don't know. I think she's a one-of-a-kind person that's really saying what needs to be said to creators and influencers who are trying to make it happen for themselves.
Totally. I think she is just like owning that label and that packaging because it works, and like the spicy takes are what people come on to TikTok for. But yeah, I totally agree with you. A lot of it is just like sensible business and life advice.
Yeah. And she just puts a new spin on it. I really, what did she say? There's a lot of things she said that I was like, oh, that's really smart. I don't know exactly, but you should check out her TikTok. She has a lot of just great ideas. Oh, one thing that was funny, it's not what I was thinking of, but her house has a tram, and that's the only way you can get up to it. And she's like, it'll be an investment because I can make a lot of content about it, which is so smart because if you think about it, that is the content of hers, I think she said, that does the best. So it is an investment into more opportunities in the future. And I think that's really smart. I don't think people think about that enough.
Yeah, exactly. Making life decisions based on that, it's definitely interesting. She's like just straight up inspiring. I feel like she could coach a team of like any sport and they would succeed. They would win the championship.
Well, you took a class with her. I feel like you can much more accurately talk about who she is than me.
She creates an amazing vibe. She always starts on time. She doesn't do the whole awkward, oh, we'll wait for more people to trickle in. She just like, if you're going to pay for her time, she wants to make sure you're getting everything that you can from it. And her course was way more valuable than the price that she was charging. And me and several other students at the end of the course, we told her like, hey, we would have been like, in retrospect, we would have paid way more for this course. Like, it's super valuable. And then she did raise the price for future cohorts. And I'm like,
her.
You go. Yeah, absolutely. She's awesome. And I think the audience will have loved this episode.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode was recorded with StreamYard. If you want to record a podcast like this, check out the link in the description to get started.
Thanks for joining us on Inside the Creator Studio. See you next time.